The Johnson house sat quietly on Willow Creek Lane, the kind of suburban street where everyone knew each other's names, and children rode their bikes without worry. The sun was just dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. Inside the Johnson home, Samantha Parker adjusted her bag at the front door. She had been babysitting for the family for nearly 6 months, and the evening had started like any other. "Thanks for coming, Sam," Rachel Johnson said, smiling as she handed her daughter a plate of snacks. "We'll be back by 10. Don't let the kids run wild." Samantha chuckled softly. "You know I won't. They're angels." Mark Johnson gave a quick nod. "See you later. And Sam, call if anything unusual happens." Samantha waved goodbye, watching the parents' car disappear down the street. The house settled into a comfortable silence, only punctuated by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. "Snack time," Samantha announced, her voice gentle but cheerful. Emma and Lucas rushed into the kitchen, their laughter filling the room. Samantha couldn't help but smile. She liked the kids, they were smart, funny, and had a way of making even the dullest evenings lively. After dinner, she guided them through homework and then into a quiet activity, Emma with her coloring books, Lucas with building blocks. Samantha settled into the living room with her own notebook, jotting down observations, little notes about their moods, small details she always recorded. The clock ticked past 8. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, bathing the quiet suburban road in an amber glow. Samantha felt a strange unease she couldn't place, like the house was holding its breath. She shook it off. She was being silly. Suddenly, there was a soft knock at the back door. Samantha froze. It was unusual, the Johnsons rarely had visitors in the evening. She stood and approached cautiously. "No one's there," she whispered to herself, peering into the dimly lit backyard. The door rattled lightly in the wind. "Must be the neighbor's cat," she thought. Returning to the living room, she found Emma asleep on the couch, Lucas already snuggled with his favorite blanket. Samantha checked her watch, 9:45 p.m. Soon, the Johnsons would be back. Just another normal evening, she reassured herself. But at 9:57 p.m., when Samantha went to tidy the kitchen, she noticed the front door slightly ajar. Her heart raced. She had locked it earlier. She tried calling out, but no answer came. The house, usually comforting, now felt foreign, cold. And that was the last time anyone saw Samantha Parker. The evening air had cooled, and the street outside the Johnson house was bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Rachel and Mark Johnson's car pulled into the driveway, the hum of the engine breaking the silence. Mark stepped out first, stretching and rubbing his shoulders. "Long day," he muttered. Rachel nodded, clutching her bag. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. Rachel called out softly, "Sam? We're back." No response. Mark frowned. Maybe she went to the kitchen. They stepped in, scanning the living room. Emma and Lucas were in bed, tucked under blankets. But there was no sign of Sam. "Sam?" Rachel's voice trembled slightly. "Where are you?" Mark moved to check the kitchen. The counter was tidy, but there was a faint note left on the notebook Sam always carried. Lucas spilled the juice. "Cleaned up. Everything's fine. See you soon." Rachel's heart sank. That's strange. She wouldn't just leave. Mark picked up his phone. "I'll call her." The ringtone echoed through the empty house. No answer. Panic began to settle in. Rachel's hands shook as she dialed Sam's mother, explaining the situation. Mark ran outside, checking the street, the neighbors' houses. Nothing. Across the street, Linda Carter, the elderly neighbor, peeked from her window. She had seen Sam earlier, waving goodbye to the Johnsons, but now the porch light was on, and the house was silent. Something felt off. Within minutes, Mark and Rachel were calling the police. Detective Michael Hartman arrived within the hour, calm but serious, his eyes scanning the scene like a hawk. "Walk me through the night," he said, notebook in hand. Rachel recounted the evening: dinner, homework, bedtime stories. Everything normal. No arguments, no visitors, no disturbances. Hartman frowned. "And the door was locked when you left?" "Yes. Sam always double-checks," Mark replied. Hartman's eyes narrowed. So someone had to either know her routine or just walk in unnoticed. He walked through the house meticulously, noting every detail: the slightly ajar front door, the open living room window, Emma's half-colored drawing on the table. Nothing seemed forcibly taken, but Sam was gone. Linda Carter approached cautiously. I thought I saw a man walking down the street around 9:50. He had a dark hoodie, looked like he was watching the house." Hartman jotted it down. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. That's very helpful." Meanwhile, the Johnsons sat on the couch, gripping each other's hands. Emma, now awake, whispered, "Where's Sam?" Rachel hugged her daughter tightly. "She'll be back soon, sweetie. Don't worry." But deep down, both parents felt the gnawing fear: this was not normal. As the night stretched on, more neighbors were interviewed, the police set up a temporary perimeter, and cameras were checked. Every frame was scrutinized, yet no clear sign of Sam's whereabouts emerged. By midnight, Detective Hartman stood on the Johnson porch, looking up at the dark sky. He muttered under his breath, "Someone wanted her gone, but why?" The Johnson house had transformed overnight. Police tape crisscrossed the front yard, officers moved methodically from room to room, and the hum of walkie-talkies filled the air. Detective Michael Hartman, a man with a reputation for patience and persistence, crouched by the slightly ajar front door. He examined the lock closely. "No signs of forced entry," he muttered. "She either knew whoever entered, or they had a key." Inside, the living room remained in a tense stillness. Emma sat on the couch, clutching her favorite doll. Lucas fidgeted beside her, eyes wide. Rachel and Mark stood nearby, the worry etched deeply into their faces. Hartman cleared his throat. "I need to ask you both detailed questions. I know it's difficult, but every small detail matters." Rachel swallowed hard. "We've told the officers everything we know. Dinner, homework, bedtime, nothing unusual." Hartman nodded. "Good. And the note?" Mark handed it over. Hartman scanned it, noting the neat handwriting. "This is definitely Sam's," he said. "She always writes like this." He paused. "I'll need a list of everyone who has keys to this house. And any recent visitors, even deliveries." Meanwhile, officers spoke to neighbors. Linda Carter repeated what she'd seen: a figure in a dark hoodie, walking slowly past the Johnson house just before 10. "I thought it was a teenager at first," she admitted. "But the way he lingered, something about it didn't feel right." Across the street, Tyler Brooks, the 17-year-old tech-savvy neighbor, shared something more concrete. "I got it on my security camera. You can see a figure near the Johnson driveway. It moves fast, then disappears. Could be someone walking a dog, maybe, but the timestamp matches around 9:50. Hartman raised an eyebrow. "Bring me the footage immediately." Back inside, Hartman conducted a room-by-room sweep, taking photographs of minor details: Emma's coloring books, Lucas's blocks, the half-empty juice cup. Every small object could tell a story. He then sat the parents down. "I need to know everything about Sam, her routines, friends, anyone she mentioned recently, any plans. No detail is too small." Rachel hesitated. She seemed fine, happy, normal. She had been talking about moving into her own apartment after summer classes. "Any disagreements, arguments, or people she didn't like?" Hartman asked. Mark shook his head. "Not that we know of. Sam is careful, responsible. Very observant." Hartman scribbled notes. "That's good. But sometimes, the careful ones are the most vulnerable, they trust too easily. As the night deepened, Hartman reviewed the neighborhood cameras. The footage was grainy, but one thing became chillingly clear: the figure in the hoodie didn't leave the area immediately. Someone had been watching the house, waiting. Hartman rubbed his temple. This wasn't random, he muttered. Someone knew exactly when to act. He stood, looking out over the quiet suburban street. Every lighted window, every closed curtain, every shadow might hide a clue, or a threat. The investigation had officially begun. And with each passing hour, the mystery of Samantha Parker's disappearance grew darker and more tangled. The Johnson house had become a maze of police officers, detectives, and forensic specialists. Every corner was examined, every surface photographed, every object catalogued. Detective Michael Hartman moved carefully through the rooms, his sharp eyes catching details most would overlook. In the living room, he noticed Emma's coloring books stacked neatly, yet one page had something odd: a drawing of a person with a hood, standing outside a house. Emma's small voice piped up, "That's the man I saw outside. I think." Hartman crouched beside her. "Emma, tell me exactly what you saw." She hesitated, biting her lip. He was tall, wore a dark hoodie, and he didn't smile. He looked at Sam's house, then walked away. Mark and Rachel exchanged worried glances. Meanwhile, the forensic team found a set of muddy footprints on the back porch, partially wiped but visible in the flashlight beam. Hartman knelt, tracing them with a gloved hand. "These aren't Sam's shoes, they're bigger, heavier." In the kitchen, a subtle clue emerged: a half-empty juice cup, but the spill pattern suggested it had been tipped intentionally, almost staged. Hartman made a note: someone wanted this house to seem normal, but left traces of disorder. Tyler Brooks handed over his security footage. Hartman watched intently as the figure in the hoodie moved near the driveway, pausing several times to peer into the house. The movements were deliberate, calculated, not a casual passerby. Hartman leaned back, eyes narrowing. This person studied the house, the routines. They knew when Sam would be alone. Outside, neighbors murmured theories. Some recalled seeing a black SUV parked across the street earlier in the week, disappearing without explanation. Others spoke of a strange man asking for directions days before. Each recollection was fragmented, but patterns began to emerge in Hartman's mind. Back in the living room, Hartman reviewed Sam's notebook. Among her usual notes about the kids and the house, he found a single page with a cryptic line. "Something doesn't feel right. Watch for shadows. Trust instincts." His brow furrowed. "She sensed it," he murmured. Sam knew something, but what? Hartman began cataloging suspects and potential motives. Could it be a stranger, a neighbor, or someone who knew Sam personally? He needed to connect the footprints, the figure on camera, and Sam's intuition. As night fell, the shadows in the Johnson house seemed deeper, more oppressive. Every creak, every flicker of light, every unexplained noise amplified the sense of danger. Hartman couldn't shake the feeling that the key to finding Sam was hidden in plain sight, buried among the clues she had left behind. Detective Hartman spent the morning following up on leads, speaking to neighbors, friends, and co-workers. The quiet suburban street of Willow Creek Lane was now alive with whispers and speculation. Linda Carter, the elderly neighbor, recounted once again what she had seen. "I'm telling you, detective, that man in the hoodie wasn't just passing by. He lingered, watching the Johnsons' house. Something about him, it wasn't right." Hartman nodded, making notes. "Can you describe him in more detail?" Linda squinted. "Tall, broad shoulders. Hard to see the face. But he moved, deliberately. Not like a kid fooling around." Across the street, Tyler Brooks, the teenage neighbor, revealed another detail. "I didn't think it was important before, but I saw the same black SUV twice this week. Parked for a while, then gone. No plates. Feels like someone's been casing the houses." Hartman leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. Two pieces of the puzzle: same vehicle, suspicious figure. "We need to find out who owns that SUV." At the Johnson house, Sam's friends were interviewed. One friend mentioned a man who had been messaging Sam online for weeks, a persistent stranger she didn't know well. Another spoke of a fellow student at college who had seemed unusually interested in her schedule. Hartman's notebook was filling fast. "We have 3 potential leads: the man in the hoodie, the black SUV, and someone Sam knew personally." Meanwhile, minor neighbors added conflicting reports. One claimed they heard strange noises in the yard around 9:40 p.m. Another swore they saw a figure near the garage but weren't sure if it was Sam. "Everyone sees something different," Hartman muttered. "But patterns emerge when you put them together." Back at the house, Rachel Johnson anxiously inspected Sam's belongings. She wouldn't just leave her notebook, or her phone, she said. She was responsible, careful. Hartman observed quietly. "That's what worries me. If she didn't leave, and there's no forced entry, someone trusted her enough to get her out of the house, or she knew them." The detective began compiling a list of possible suspects. The stranger in the hoodie, seen on camera, unknown identity. Owner of the black SUV, untraceable plates, possibly linked to previous sightings. Acquaintances from Sam's life, friends, college classmates, or someone online showing unusual interest. Neighbors, while unlikely, Hartman noted that familiarity with the street could aid a calculated plan. He reviewed all statements carefully. Contradictions, forgotten details, and half-truths began to emerge, blurring the line between witness and suspect. As night fell, Hartman returned to the Johnson house. He stood in the living room, eyes scanning the space Sam had once occupied. Every shadow, every object, every note could be a key. The investigation was now more than finding Sam, it was piecing together a network of secrets, fears, and hidden motives. And somewhere in that web, the person responsible was watching, waiting, and possibly planning their next move. Detective Hartman sat at his desk, surrounded by stacks of notes, photographs, and printed interviews. The case of Samantha Parker's disappearance had grown more complicated by the hour. Every lead branched into more questions, and every witness seemed to hold back something, whether intentionally or not. Back at the Johnson house, Rachel and Mark tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Emma and Lucas. But their own minds were a storm of fear and doubt. "Do you think Sam knew something?" Rachel whispered to Mark, glancing at the darkened living room. Mark shook his head, though uneasily. "I don't know. She seemed careful, yes, but maybe too careful. Did she sense danger and not tell us?" Hartman began speaking with people close to Sam. Her college friends painted a picture of a bright, cautious young woman who had recently grown more reserved. She was paranoid, a little, one friend admitted. She kept talking about being watched. But we all thought it was just stress from school. Another revealed a troubling detail. Sam mentioned someone following her once, online messages from a stranger. She didn't tell anyone much, just worried about it. Hartman frowned. So she may have felt threatened. And the timing fits. At the Johnson house, Rachel found something in Sam's room she hadn't noticed before, a hidden folder of letters and emails, some addressed to Sam but unsigned. Some were innocuous, but others contained cryptic warnings. "Be careful. Not everyone is who they seem. You shouldn't trust them." Hartman was called to examine the documents. He read them carefully. This isn't random harassment. Someone is deliberately trying to unsettle her, maybe even lure her. Meanwhile, neighbors revealed fragments of information. A teenage boy, Tyler Brooks, admitted that someone had been asking questions about Sam days before her disappearance. Linda Carter recalled a car parked suspiciously near Sam's college campus a week prior. Hartman began connecting the dots. Someone had been tracking Sam's movements, both near the Johnson house and elsewhere. They were patient, meticulous, and familiar with her routines. Even the Johnson family had secrets, though small ones. Mark had taken late-night business calls and left the door unlocked once, unaware of how observant Sam was. Rachel occasionally vented to friends about feeling overwhelmed. None of these seemed directly harmful, but Hartman considered every possibility. By evening, Hartman called the family together. Sam's disappearance isn't random. There's a person, or persons, who have been watching her for some time. We need to consider everyone she interacted with recently, and anyone who might have grudges, obsessions, or unusual interest in her life. Emma, curled in Rachel's lap, whispered, "I want Sam back." Hartman placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We will find her, Emma. That's why we're looking at every detail, every secret, and every clue she might have left behind." But as night fell, Hartman couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion. The person responsible for Sam's disappearance might already be closer than anyone realized, living among them, waiting, watching. Detective Hartman stared at the growing list of suspects pinned to the corkboard in his office. Names, photographs, and timelines overlapped in a chaotic web. Every lead seemed promising, until it unraveled. First, there was Jason Whitman, a young man from Sam's college class. Friends reported he had been unusually persistent, sending messages and showing up near Sam's dorm. Hartman brought him in for questioning. "Did you see Sam on the evening of her disappearance?" Hartman asked. Jason shifted in his chair. "No. I mean, I saw her a few days ago, but I was at home that night. I swear." Hartman's instincts told him something was off, but the alibi checked out. Security footage and multiple witnesses confirmed it. Jason wasn't the culprit, but the unease lingered. Next was the man in the hoodie, captured by Tyler Brooks' security camera. A canvassing of local pawn shops and online forums turned up nothing. The mysterious figure vanished from records, untraceable. Then came the black SUV. Hartman followed every tip, ran license plate searches, and contacted neighbors, but all attempts led to dead ends. The SUV seemed to exist only as a ghost, appearing and disappearing without a trace. Even neighbors became sources of confusion. Linda Carter insisted she saw the same figure again, this time closer to the Johnson house, while another neighbor swore it was just a delivery driver. Each account contradicted the last. Back at the Johnson home, Rachel and Mark grew restless. "Why can't anyone find her?" Rachel whispered, tears brimming. Hartman placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes, the truth hides in the smallest details. Right now, we're chasing shadows, but one of these shadows will lead us to Sam." Meanwhile, subtle clues emerged. Sam's notebook revealed tiny inconsistencies in her daily notes, mentions of minor disturbances, things she hadn't reported before. They seemed insignificant at first, but Hartman knew better. She's been noticing things, leaving breadcrumbs without realizing it. Even with these breadcrumbs, the investigation circled back to false leads, each one frustrating, each one heightening the sense of urgency. Hartman leaned back in his chair, staring at the wall covered in photos and notes. Every path seemed promising, yet misleading. Whoever was behind Sam's disappearance was clever, patient, and steps ahead. And somewhere out there, the person watching, planning, waiting, a shadow in plain sight, smiled quietly, knowing the detective's frustration was part of the game. Detective Hartman sat alone in his office, replaying Tyler Brooks' security footage for what felt like the 100th time. The grainy image of the man in the hoodie haunted him. But tonight, something was different. He paused the video, zooming in on a faint reflection in a car window across the street. There, a distorted image of a license plate partially visible. Hartman's pulse quickened. He immediately ran the numbers through the DMV database. The plate belonged to a rental SUV, checked out from a small agency downtown. Hartman called the agency, requesting records of who had rented it in the past 2 weeks. Meanwhile, back at the Johnson house, Rachel and Mark were trying to keep their children calm. Emma clutched her doll tightly. "I just want Sam back," she whispered. Detective Hartman arrived with news. "We might finally have a lead," he said. He laid out the details of the rental, explaining how the SUV matched the one seen near the house, and that it was connected to a man named Daniel Price, 28, living just outside the suburb. "Who is he?" Mark asked, anxiety rising. "Unknown to Sam, but not unknown to us," Hartman replied. He has a history of stalking and harassment. Nothing violent yet, but we need to act quickly. Officers prepared to search Daniel Price's apartment. Hartman led the team, careful to avoid alerting the suspect. Inside, the apartment was meticulous, unnervingly clean, yet certain areas hinted at obsession: maps of Willow Creek Lane, photos of the Johnson house, and a folder labeled Sam Parker. Hartman opened it slowly. Inside were notes tracking her schedule, her movements, even observations about the Johnson children. A chill ran down his spine. "This is why Sam disappeared," Hartman murmured. "He's been planning this for weeks." In a hidden closet, they found Sam, alive, shaken but unharmed. Bound but able to breathe freely. Relief flooded the room. Rachel and Mark rushed forward, embracing her tightly. "She's okay," Hartman announced to his team, though his mind raced. "But we need to find out why. What was he planning, and was this just the beginning?" Outside, Daniel Price was taken into custody, his calm demeanor unshaken. But Hartman knew this wasn't the full story. Someone so meticulous rarely acts alone. As the sun rose over Willow Creek Lane, Hartman looked at the Johnson family. The immediate danger had passed, but questions remained. Were there more accomplices? How long had Price been watching? And most importantly, was Sam truly safe? Detective Hartman sat across from Daniel Price in the interrogation room. The room was stark, fluorescent lights casting sharp shadows on the walls. Price leaned back, calm, almost smug, as if he had been expecting this moment. "Why Sam?" Hartman asked, voice measured but intense. "Why her? She was just doing her job." Price smiled faintly, a chilling, practiced expression. "It wasn't personal, at first. Just curiosity. Observation. I wanted to see if I could get close. She intrigued me. Too careful, too predictable." Hartman's eyes narrowed. "You stalked her, invaded her life, kidnapped her, and called it curiosity?" Price shrugged. "People underestimate the power of routine. I just followed the pattern. I didn't plan to harm her, not really. Just control. Prove I could." Hartman leaned forward, voice sharp. "Control over a terrified woman? That's not harmless. That's criminal. And now she's scared for life." Price's calm demeanor flickered for a moment. "Maybe. But you see. The thrill is in the chase, not the outcome. She's smart. She noticed things. I respected that, until I didn't." Hartman's mind raced. The man before him was meticulous, obsessive, and dangerously rational. Yet there was something off, like there was more behind the plan, layers Hartman hadn't uncovered yet. Suddenly, a junior officer interrupted. "Detective, we found a series of emails on his laptop. They reference another person, a collaborator. Possibly someone feeding him information." Hartman felt a chill. "Another player? That explains the shadows we couldn't trace." He turned back to Price. "Who else is involved? Names. Now." Price's eyes darted briefly, a crack in his composure. "You wouldn't believe me, even if I told you. But yes, someone else. Someone close. Someone trusted her too." Hartman's jaw tightened. The case was far from over. The immediate threat was neutralized, Sam was safe, but the web of danger extended beyond Daniel Price. Back at the Johnson house, Sam hugged her parents tightly. I knew something felt wrong that night," she whispered. "I tried to leave little clues, but I didn't think anyone would notice until it was too late." Rachel kissed her forehead, tears streaming. "You're safe now, Sam. That's all that matters." Hartman stepped outside, looking at the quiet suburban street. The investigation had revealed the surface, but the depths remained murky. Someone else was still out there, connected to Price, still lurking in the shadows. As night descended, Hartman knew one thing: the confrontation with Price was only a step. The real truth the one that would bring closure, was still ahead. The quiet of Willow Creek Lane was deceptive. The neighborhood seemed calm, yet Detective Hartman felt the tension linger like a shadow. Daniel Price had been in custody for days, but the mention of a possible collaborator gnawed at him. Forensic analysis of Price's laptop and phone revealed messages exchanged with an unknown contact. The name appeared only once, Mr. Hartman traced digital footprints, piecing together patterns, timestamps, and hidden connections. Then came a breakthrough. A local store's security camera caught a figure matching Mr's description, delivering groceries to the Johnson Street the day before Sam's disappearance. Hartman's gut told him, this person knew the routines intimately, had observed the house for weeks. Meanwhile, Sam tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy. She returned to her parents' home, sleeping in the familiar bedroom, talking with Emma and Lucas. Yet the shadow of that night remained. "I can't stop thinking about how close it all was," she admitted to Rachel. Back in the interrogation room, Hartman confronted Mar, whose calm veneer cracked quickly under scrutiny. Under careful questioning, the truth began to emerge. Mr. had been a former acquaintance of Sam's college circle, someone she had trusted enough to share details of her schedule. Mr. had manipulated Daniel Price into the act, using him as a tool while remaining hidden. It was supposed to be a game, Mr. confessed. "I wanted to prove I could orchestrate everything without being seen. I didn't want her hurt, at least not seriously, but things spiraled." Hartman's jaw tightened. "You endangered her life. That's not a game." Mr. hung their head, finally showing remorse. "I know. I underestimated it." With both perpetrators in custody, the investigation drew to a close. Evidence, confessions, and security footage left little doubt about the chain of events. Sam's disappearance, though terrifying, had been orchestrated with careful planning, but not without errors that ultimately allowed her rescue. Back at home, the Johnsons held a quiet family gathering. Sam hugged Emma and Lucas tightly, her eyes reflecting both relief and lingering fear. "I'm safe now," she whispered. "And I'll never take that for granted." Detective Hartman stood outside the house, watching the sun rise. Justice had been served, yet he knew the scars would remain, both for Sam and the family. Sometimes, the truth was enough, sometimes, it left shadows that lingered. As he drove away, Hartman couldn't help but reflect. Human obsession and curiosity could create monsters, but careful observation, persistence, and courage could still prevail.